Kamala's campaign is going into a death spiral, so cue the BS symphony of slander and lies on Donald Trump, just like clockwork. The Democrats are desperate, and I mean desperate, so desperate and so pathetic, they're relying on their comrades in the fake news media to spread more hearsay, BS hoaxes about Donald Trump. That's it. That's all they have in their tank. But of course, the mainstream media mob is more than happy to carry their water.
We have some truly extraordinary breaking news this morning, Robin. Retired Marine General John Kelly. He was Trump's longest serving chief of staff, and he is speaking out right now with things we have never heard before from someone who has served a president. He says Donald Trump fits the definition of a fascist. He says that Donald Trump praised Adolf Hitler, demeaned American war heroes, calls Donald Trump a man who would govern like a dictator if allowed.
Election interference, plain and simple. And these people on ABC claim to be journalists and they claim to be impartial, but we all know that's a friggin' joke. But that is what they have to resort to, given their candidate is a stone-cold moron, and the Biden policies they've warmed over for her are about as appetizing to voters as gas station sushi. The desperation and the panic is palpable. Kamala's got less than 2 weeks to sell herself and her vision to the American people, and she uses it to tell you Trump is Hitler. How original.
Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power.
Trotting her out there to repeat that same tired narrative just goes to show how out of touch the Democrats are with Main Street America. People cannot afford groceries. Do you think they have the luxury to cry over January 6th or opine on mean tweets and BS Trump Hitler character assassinations? Get real. Get air. Touch grass. Kamala touts herself as a new generation of leadership, but the people who program her are the same tired people who have been in charge of this country for the better part of the last 20 years. This strategy is built on lies and fueled by psychotic desperation. Get well soon. I hope Trump not only wins this election, but wins the popular vote and demolishes Kamala so resoundingly that the establishment and the deep state and the fake news media hacks spend their holidays holed up in padded safe space cry rooms. Y'all deserve it, and I hope you get it. Joining me now is Spaces with Josie host, also known as the redheaded Libertarian on X. Josie joins me now. It's great to have you. I'm assuming you watched the Kamala town hall last night with Anderson Cooper. I never thought I would say this, Josie, but I really, really hope that so many independent voters watched CNN last night. How about yourself?
Yeah, that was a nightmare. That was like a fever dream. That was something that I can't believe I actually watched happen. The way that she laced her sentences together in ways that they didn't make sense. It's something that we've kind of seen this entire time. But then she's saying things like, my weaknesses are actually my strengths. And this is something right out of like The Office. Like Michael Scott said this on The Office, the world's worst boss, so it was just watching this happen. It's just a clown show. We're watching their campaign totally fall apart and implode on itself. And it's kind of refreshing, to be honest.
Honestly, a CNN town hall should be a slam dunk for her. She should have been able to perform better. But what is astounding to me is that given all the opportunities that she has had to perfect her answers, even if they are just shallow talking points, she still can't even get the talking points right at this point. She was asked what her first piece of legislation would be. She couldn't come up with an answer. She was asked about her weaknesses. Again, couldn't come up with the answer. She was asked about the border, couldn't come up with an answer. Every time you'd think at this point, she would at least curate some answers beyond maybe the same 2 or 3 talking points that she's generated for herself or her team has, but it's still not there. And I'm wondering if you see the desperation in the campaign as vividly as I see it.
Yes, she is the first candidate that's been completely manufactured by the media. So she is saying what the media tells her to say, and these non-answers are very specifically non-answers because she is trying to court independent voters and disaffected Republicans and libertarians, so she's saying what she's told to say, and she's dodging questions, but she's not smooth at dodging questions. Usually when you dodge a question, what you do is you'd respond in what they wish, what you wish that they asked you. But she just kind of dances around it and laughs, and it's very unprofessional and very kind of alarming to watch that happen.
She also has a knack of laughing at her own jokes. No one else was laughing as she was laughing at herself, which I found quite interesting in that little debacle last night. But what I think is interesting as a strategy perspective here, we've seen this campaign evolve. It was Joe Biden who was going all in on Save Democracy, January 6th, the Charlottesville lie, and that was his campaign, and it was failing. It was failing so badly that he had to drop out of the race or was pushed out of the race. And then you saw Kamala, they tried a new strategy with her, joy, vibes, happiness. All right. They tried that. She got a little bit of a sugar high with the DNC and maybe for a couple weeks thereafter. But now they're back to the same old democracy, January 6th, Trump is a fascist. So I'm wondering if you're clocking the strategy as I am and you're seeing the evolution there going back to the January 6th, something in their internal polling had to tell them that this was better than joy and vibes. Or maybe at this point, they've just decided that they're going to lose and they're okay with it. What do you think the strategy is? And do you think it's working with libertarian independent voters kind of like yourself?
It definitely is not working with us. So she had courted, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney to appeal to the libertarians. And this actually, Tim Walz came out and said this, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life, because we're anti-war, and this guy manufactured every crisis in the Middle East for the last 23 years. He's responsible for millions and millions of deaths of innocent people. Why on earth would they say that Dick Cheney gives libertarians permission to vote for Kamala? Is the quote from Tim Walz. It's completely insane, but it's almost like plan A was Joe Biden, and then he obviously got dementia or something, and they had to go with their backup, and their backup had no primary votes. She was completely just installed, whether or not they palace cooed Joe Biden to get her in there. And they changed their own rules at the DNC in order to make it so that she could be their candidate without having this primary. And, now she's kind of propped up by the media, and they're telling us what to think about her. And and then after we watch how she is, then they're like, that was terrific. So they're telling you what you saw. They're correcting what you saw, correcting your eyes and your ears. So I think that it's like plan B was Joe Biden, plan A was Joe Biden, plan B was to try to get Trump out with lawfare or worse measures. Plan C was this joy and vibes kind of campaign. And plan D is just to call him Hitler even harder, because that worked in, 2020, just to call him Hitler a bunch of times. So I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work, but I'll tell you this. You mentioned the people in the mainstream media who are still trying to convince themselves and others that Kamala is doing a great job. I think that there are some that are still playing that game, but even watching the reaction on CNN last night, there were some folks at CNN that didn't even want to go that route. They wanted to be, honest, and I think that they would damage their own careers by saying that went well. The same way as, I'm very honest. When Donald Trump says something stupid, I'm like, he shouldn't have said that was pretty stupid. Talking about Arnold Palmer and his manhood, probably kind of stupid. Repeating the line about Hannibal Lecter, kind of stupid. So there's things that Donald Trump says that I'm like, yeah, I wish he wouldn't have said that. So I think some of the folks in the mainstream media that maybe wanted Kamala to win, I think that they've also accepted the fact that she very likely may lose, and I don't think they want to hitch their wagon to her. And do you think that that's going to be, as we see this next week play out, do you think that they're going to get more desperate and just lean on the anti-Trump stuff, or do you think that they're going to kind of try to salvage themselves in their careers and maybe admit how bad she is?
I think that they're going to continue to lean on the anti-Trump stuff. As we saw, they came out with this, emergency 3-minute press conference to call Donald Trump Hitler. And then there was, then they're bringing more allegations about sexual assault to the forefront. And I think they're just going to really double down on that. I would imagine their internal polling said something about the women voters and the sexual assault, because that was a winning platform for them last time. And I think they're going to try to repeat that.
Well, Josie, I want to ask you about that too, because to me, it's really rich. Yes, you want to keep going back to the Trump scandals and, he's a playboy. He's that. They tried that in 2016. It didn't work. Their October surprise then were the Access Hollywood tapes. That didn't work. They thought that was going to end him. Every time they pull this and they resurrect this stuff out, nobody really cares. But what I think is interesting here is if you want to talk about women and you want to talk about sexual assault and you want to talk about the safety of women, how can you say that and then also completely ignore all of the vulnerable young women in this country who are being targeted with migrant crime and also women's sports and the integrity of women's spaces and their locker rooms? I don't think they want to get into that game because I think it's tired and I think it's actually going to backfire on them, and especially on the suburban women voters who, they might not like Donald Trump. They don't like that he's a playboy, but more so they want their children to be safe in their own community.
Yes. And I think that, as a mother myself, that was something that really spoke to me is how they treat children. And, whether it's the transing of them or putting the boys in the girls' locker rooms, it's not safe. And I think that spoke to not like a lot of the suburban women, a lot of the women who might have been questionable, a lot of the women who are just going to go with whoever their husband votes for now. So yeah, I think that's, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I think that's an important thing to look at.
Right. Well, and it's not just Kamala and it's not just folks in the mainstream media, but Karine Jean-Pierre decided to step into this one as well. And when she was explicitly asked if she thinks that, a candidate for president of the United States is a fascist, and this was her answer. Let's play this.
And to be praising Adolf Hitler is dangerous and it's also disgusting.
So just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
Yes, we have said, he said himself. The former president has said he is going to be a dictator on day one. We cannot ignore that. We cannot. And we cannot ignore or forget what happened on January 6, 2021.
So interesting here. I don't know the rules at play, but I would think that the Hatch Act would come into play. Karine Jean-Pierre has cited it many times when she doesn't get into election issues. She stepped in it pretty solidly there. But, I don't know, Josie, when people are grocery shopping and they can't afford eggs and they can't afford bread and they have to put things back that they could normally afford, I don't know if the thing at the tippy top of their mind is fascism and January 6th, but maybe I'm wrong. What's your sense where you are?
I don't think about fascism and January 6th at all. I think about my children. I think about paying my mortgage. I think about their future. And I think about the most existential threat being World War III, really, not climate change, not Trump as Hitler, nothing like that. I think of World War III and I think of how he didn't start any new wars. And this administration has, and how they brought on Dick Cheney and how John Bolton is in their commercials. And that's telling me that they are going to lead us toward the biggest existential threat. And that's what worries me as a human, as a mother, as a libertarian.
Right. So how are the Libertarians feeling right now? Because I know it was a big thing, at least what I've seen, is that the RFK Jr. joining the kind of the unity ticket there in campaigning for Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard as well. I would think that the Libertarians would be looking really closely at Donald Trump. He's going to be, of course, on Joe Rogan tomorrow. There's a big Libertarian crowd that follows Joe Rogan. Are the Libertarians still independent voters, or do you think that they are primarily going to vote for Donald Trump this go around?
I think that a large majority are going to vote for Donald Trump. We actually had him at the Libertarian National Convention, and he came and he spoke to libertarians. And, a lot of them are not friendly with Donald Trump. So it was the first time he kind of put himself in a position to be booed. And he was by several. But he also came out with several libertarian policies that he is going to install in his cabinet. And, he's like, you just have to, vote for me or get your 3%. He said, just to kind of tease us a little bit about how libertarians never win. But he had promised to free Ross Ulbricht, which Ross is in prison for creating a decentralized website for 2 life sentences. He said that he would put together a panel to look at the J6 abuses with libertarians on that. He said he would put a libertarian in his cabinet. He said he would abolish the Department of Education, all very huge libertarian values. So he's definitely courting the libertarian vote in a way that means something to us. And then, like I said, he didn't start any new wars. And this is important to us as well. So he's courting libertarians with things that matter to us. He's done his research. He knows what's important to libertarians. Then you have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz saying, well, we got Dick Cheney on to court the libertarians. So you can kind of know who actually is doing the job to court the libertarians, and it's him.
Kamala has no shortage of celebrities, and if celebrities mattered and their endorsements mattered at this point, Kamala would be doing far better in the polls. Word that Beyonce is going to join her in Texas tomorrow. Oh boy, I'm not sure that the state of Texas is in play for Kamala, but she wants Beyonce on the stage. Of course, she has Lizzo. They had Eminem the other night with Obama and Tim Walz. The list of celebrity endorsements are really endless. Don't think that they're going to move the needle at all. But what I find interesting is Mark Cuban, who seemingly sold his soul. I don't know what they have on that man, but he is going all in for Kamala. Sometimes, though, if you actually press him, he doesn't seem to be a big fan of any of her policy positions. But here he is, once again, selling his soul to shill for Kamala Harris. Let's take a look at this latest one.
You know, I watch Shark Tank all the time.
See, I knew I liked you.
And then I often, depending on, because, there are a lot of reruns, I'll look it up to see how the company's doing.
Well, hopefully mine are doing well.
Yeah, he just loves her. What do you make of the Mark Cuban kind of subtle endorsement, or sometimes not so subtle endorsement of Kamala Harris? Do you think that he really is an equal to someone like Elon Musk, who's quite obviously campaigning for Donald Trump, wants Donald Trump to win?
I think he's trying to be the anti-Elon Musk, like being his Wario, essentially. So, I mean, Mark Cuban is spiraling right now. He's on X and he's blocking all my homies, and it's just a real nightmare for him to be on there right now for his own sake. I hope he's well and stuff. But what I had noticed is so right after Elon had been told by Trump that he wanted him to run the Department of Government Efficiency, Mark came out and he said he was interested in running, I think it was the SEC. And it was just something he kind of talked about. And all of a sudden he just went hard in the paint for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And I wonder if he's trying to get that position, to run this in the same way, like he wants, this is his next journey, is to go into government. And so I think he might have just put all his eggs in that basket. And I mean, he doesn't seem like he agrees with those policies. And sometimes he seems like he's trying to more convince himself that he agrees with those policies than he is us.
He said the other day that if she did actually enact some of the things that she's talked about, unrealized gains and the like, that he would campaign against her the next go around. Oh, great. So you're just going to give her 4 years to destroy the country and then you'll campaign against her. He sold his soul. I don't take him seriously anymore. I think he's a very bright man, but I don't know why he'd hitch his wagon to that. It makes no sense. I think a lot of his fellow Shark Tankers as well seem to be much more friendly towards at least Donald Trump's policies. So it'll be interesting to see how that cast of characters shakes out and who's actually better for business. But Josie, thank you, the redheaded libertarian, of course, on X. Appreciate your commentary and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Tommy.
Folks, I tried to come up with a diverse list of losers this week, but try as I may and try as I might, they all came from the Kamala Harris campaign. So here are the best of the worst. So Kamala took a couple of days off this week to do pre-taped interviews with her friends in the mainstream media, and even so, she managed to tank so dismally. I'm convinced she's trying to lose. Here is one of my personal favorites. Kamala was asked by a Telemundo reporter how she, beyond letting 10 million of them invade our country, could do more to kiss up to illegals, and this was her answer, I think.
Right now, we're talking about border security, and there's nobody, no Democrat, talking about pathway to citizenship, an immigration relief, and the benefits that migrants bring to this country.
Oh, but there's no question that migrants bring. America is a country that was built in part by immigrants.
But people are concerned about their TPS, their DACA, we're talking about mass deportations.
I'm not talking about
Where do you stand on
Anything
mass deportations? What's your stand there?
We need smart, humane immigration policy in America that includes a pathway to citizenship.
So now you know, Kamala won't deport anyone. She'll offer a pathway to citizenship. And she would have just been better off saying that, but instead she had to give us her radical plan laced in a word salad first. And last night's CNN town hall, I mean, she is cooked.
So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years, you were vice president, not the president, but why wasn't any of that done the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
The hamster that works her brain wheel is dead. Speaking of hamsters, Tim Walz reminds me of a poor man's Mickey Mouse, and I think my favorite Walz moment yet might be this one.
I'm going to talk about his running mate. His running mate, Elon Musk. Seriously. Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dip on these things. You know it.
Yes, no kidding. Tim, jazz hands, rocket kicks, Walz, just made fun of Elon Musk for jumping and skipping around. There's more testosterone on the San Jose women's volleyball team than the entire Harris-Walz campaign, and I'd bet my house on it. But to round out this pathetic campaign team is Barack Obama, who has done Kamala no favors, by the way. But here he is, perplexed at how our country got so nasty.
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter, and I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it.
Yeah, he said that on the same day that Joe Biden said Trump should be locked up, and less than 24 hours later, Kamala and her surrogates came out and called Trump Hitler. These people are shameless, and once upon a time, their BS worked, but it's wearing off. With this cast of clowns, Trump has a real shot at not only winning the Electoral College, but maybe also the popular vote. Those are my losers of the week. That does it for this episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for a very special episode featuring Pastor Jack Hibbs. Also catch full episodes of this show on Fox Nation whenever you like. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.